Okay, Algebra 1, these are the answers to the Chapter 5 review, the optional practice tests that you were given to complete on your own, and then check these solutions. Alright, so let's talk about what the forms for number 1, the forms for a linear equation. We have slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. That form is best when you know the slope, and you can easily identify the y-intercept either from a graph or from knowing that the point on the line is 0, comma, some y number. All right. The next form we talked about, spent a lot of time using, was point slope. This is really convenient for all equations. It's y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1 when you have a point and the slope. We have standard form. Remember, this is when x and y are on the same side and the constant term is on the other side. All right, number 2, it wants you to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So from the graph, we're going to identify the slope, and the rise here is 2, and the run is 2.5. Now, because this line is going downhill, we really should have a negative on the 2, and that's over 2.5. Now, there's a little issue with that because in math, we really don't want a decimal within a fraction. So to take care of that, if we multiply the top and bottom by 2, we could multiply by 10 or any number that would get rid of this decimal. I picked 2 because that keeps the number small. 2.5 times 2 is 5, and negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. So the slope here would be negative 4/5 or negative 0.8 if you were writing that as a decimal. This is a case where I really wouldn't use point slope form because I can look at the graph and easily determine the y-intercept is 4. So my equation would just be y equals negative 4/5 x plus 4. Alright, on to number 3. Number 3 asks us to write the equation of the line in the following forms. Alright, so this time we cannot easily identify the y-intercept, but I'm going to start like I've started pretty much every problem in this whole chapter. I'm going to figure out the slope first, and you can look at the work that I have here to do that. I labeled my points, and I calculated the slope to get negative 3. To write the equation in point slope form, I can use my x1 and y1, which in this case was negative 3 and positive 2, filling that into the point slope form, or I could have used the second point they gave me, so I have two versions for the point slope form. Now, once you have it in point slope form, you are just going to solve it for y, and to do that, you just, in this case, distribute, and you're going to add 2 to both sides to give you y equals negative 3x minus 7. So we have point slope, we have slope-intercept. Now to get to standard form, it's really an easy procedure from there. We just need the x term to be on the other side. So to do that, we add 3x to both sides. Our standard form would be 3x plus y equals negative 7. Number 4 wants us to write an equation for a linear function that has the given values. All right. So they ask us to do it into point slope form. So remember what we're going to do with function notation. Remember that function notation is f of x is equal to y. So remember, what is inside is like your input or your x, and what is over here is your y value. So the easiest way to do that is to really just turn the function notation into an ordered pair. So if I do f of negative 3 is equal to 2, my x value is negative 3, my y value is positive 2. If I do f of negative 2 equals negative 1, my x value is negative 2, my y value is negative 1. Alright, and so you're going to do the same thing. You're going to calculate the slope, which is negative 3, and then this asks us for point slope form. So if I use the first point that I have written here, I'm going to fill in y minus y1, which is 2, equals negative 3 times the quantity x plus 3. Remember, it becomes positive because the formula has a subtraction inside the parentheses, so a minus negative 3 would be plus 3. If you use the other point, this is what the equation would look like. So you really need to know that you can have two answers that look different that are exactly the same. Alright, let's talk about how to graph an equation in point slope form. Some people might be tempted to solve this for y. We don't have to. What we do have to remember is that the point that is in the equation, the values for x and y are the opposite of what's in the equation. Because if you remember the equation, the form is y minus y1. So, and equals a slope times x minus x1. So always start with your x coordinate. In this case, I have a positive 5 here. So that means the original number that was put in had to be negative 5. It had to be the opposite of what was there. So my point's going to be negative 5 for x, and my y coordinate is positive 2 here, so the original number that was put in was negative 2. So my graph is actually going to start at negative 5, negative 2. We don't have to solve it for y and get the y-intercept. That's an extra step we don't have to do. So we're going to plot that point, and this graph is not scaled by 1, so be careful of that. So I'm going to go over to negative 5 and down to negative 2, which is right here. And from there, I'm going to go down 4. So if I'm at 2, that would actually be 2 blocks because each one of these is 2. So down 4 and over 3. Over 3 units would put me right here for my second point. And that's how you graph the line. So be really careful of that. These can be pretty easy problems, but also easy to miss. Okay, number 6. Number 6 says write the equation of the line that goes through negative 2, 3 has a slope of negative 3. Again, you constantly have to think about what you're given. We are given a point and a slope. So it makes sense in this problem to start with point-slope form, which is the first thing that I did right here. I filled in my point-slope form. Now you need to be careful because the answer they want it to be in slope-intercept form. So that, remember, requires an extra step. After you get your point-slope form, you are going to solve that equation for y, and so y would equal negative 3x minus 3. Okay, so number 7 wants us to write an equation for this problem, and the information they give us says the freezing point of water is 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It wants you to write a formula, which would be an equation, that relates Fahrenheit to Celsius. All right? To do that, the first thing you're going to do is look at the information that they give you. They gave you two numbers that were related, so we can turn those two numbers into a point. So in this case, it would be 0.32 for the first point and 100, 212 for the second point. From that information, we are going to find the slope, which I did up here at the top, and you're going to need to follow my cursor because my writing's all over the place here. The slope, once you get it, reduces down to 9/5. Now, if you pay attention to the problem, this point right here is the y-intercept, so it would be very easy to write this in slope-intercept form just by simply knowing the slope and knowing the y-intercept is 32. If you didn't realize that, yes, of course, you could go ahead and write it in point-slope form and then solve it for y, and you can see I did it both ways and you get the same answer. But it's a lot less work if you realize, hey, that's the y-intercept, I can use it. All right, number 8. It wants us to tell whether the sequence is arithmetic. If you have trouble with this, there is a whole video just on arithmetic sequences, and I would encourage you to go back and watch that and do those practice problems. Remember the thing about sequences, you want to assign every number in the sequence a position, all right? And this sequence is arithmetic. You can see that it's going down by 4 every time. So if you can look at my little table right here, you can see that I showed the change of y is -4 over the change of x is 1. That gives me a slope of -4. Now, the key to doing this is that you really need to know what was in the 0 position because that's going to give you the y-intercept. So in this problem, if I go backwards, on the x's I subtract 1, but on the y's I'm going to have to add 4. So that would give me +1 plus 4 would be 5. So my equation becomes y equals -4x plus 5. X is the position you're on, y is the term you're on. Writing in that in sequence notation, you would write a sub n, which is your y, equals -4n plus 5. Okay? Now, if you want to find the value of a sub 50, you want to know what's in the 50th position. So you're going to replace the x or the n with 50. So -4 times 50 is -200, plus 5 is -195. All right, number 9 is a sequence problem that's a little bit different. They're giving you what's in the second position, and they're giving you what's in the fourth position. So the really easy way to do that would be simply to convert that to an ordered pair. So this one would be 2 comma 17. This one would be 4 comma 27. So we would find the slope in this case. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 gives us a slope of 5. Now we don't have a table. We actually could make a table. We don't have a table, but we do have a point and a slope. So I just chose to use point-slope form for this. So I wrote it using the first point, y minus 17 equals 5 times the quantity x minus 2. I solved that equation for y, and that's going to give me my explicit rule. Remember, an explicit rule is where you are just going to write an equation. Remember, we said the letter E, equation, explicit. All right, so I can rewrite that as a sub n equals 5n plus 7. Now they want us to use our equation to find a sub 100. So that means we want to know what term is in the 100th position. So we're going to do 5 times 100 is 500, and 500 plus 7 is 507. Okay, number 10. Write the equation of the vertical line that passes through 7 comma negative 9. Now remember, a vertical line, if you were to draw a vertical line for this, it's going to be going through x equals 7. So I'm just going to say that's a 7 right there. So we have a vertical line that goes through x equals 7. If you remember the thing about vertical lines, remember this line is always staying on 7. So the equation for the vertical line would be x equals 7, and that's really the only thing I would write. The equation for the horizontal line, it didn't ask me, but I wrote it anyway because I like to do more work. All right, number 11. So remember what we did with information. We basically had all kind of different information, and we had to write an equation. Now when I did number 11, and I told you to do this also in class, I said to start with this third step right here. So what you want to do with that third step is you want to write an equation in slope-intercept form, all right, that relates the total cost to the number of months of the gym membership. So to write the equation, I did the work down here. I found the slope by doing y2 minus y1, which is 35. And then I used point slope, okay? I could not easily identify where the y-intercept or where that was hitting the axis. So that's why I used point slope, okay? So I filled in y minus y1, which comes from my first point right here, equals the slope, which is 35, and you can see my slope calculation up here at the top, times the quantity x minus 2. That equation we need to solve for y, so we distribute the 35, add 100 to both sides. So this equation right here is my slope-intercept equation. Now the very first question that's on here says, how much is the initial membership fee? Remember, that is going to be your y-intercept. When x equals 0, that means the amount that we have here would be the amount that we paid up front before we started paying for any months. So 30 is my y-intercept, all right? When it says cost per month, now remember, cost per month would be a rate. And a rate in a problem is going to indicate that that's our slope. So $35 per month is our slope, and I even wrote that up above, so I don't know why I'm writing it again, okay? Now, to figure out how much it is for 12 months, well, months is our x. So all I'm going to do is take 12 and drop it into the equation for x, and I can figure out that it's going to cost me $450. Okay, number 12. Number 12 says write an equation of the line that passes through 4, 7, and is parallel to 1/2 x minus 1. Now, what do you need to remember about parallel lines? They have the same slope. So really what we're given here in this problem is a point, which is 4, 7, and a slope, which is 1/2. So we fill that into our point slope form. Y minus 7 equals 1/2 times the quantity x minus 4. We solve it for y. We get y equals 1/2 x plus 9. All right, number 13. For a school band fundraiser, students are selling seat cushions for $4 each, and license plate holders for $6 each. Right away, you are going to notice that this is a rate and this is a rate. We have two rates in this problem, so we are not going to be using those as the slope because there's two of them. What we are going to do, though, is realize that this problem is one that will set up in standard form. So I'm going to let x equal the number of seat cushions. I'm going to let y equals the number of placeholders. So 4x plus 4y would equal the total amount of money that I have to raise, which is $304. Okay? So that's my equation. Now, I want you to list two of these possible combinations. Well, what I did up here was I found the x-intercept, so I plugged in 0 for x, or excuse me, for y. I solved it for x and said that, okay, I could buy 76 seat cushions and that would raise $304. Now when I plugged in 0 for x and divided it, which I did over here on the side, you will notice that I got 50 and 2/3. That told me that I could not actually buy 50 and 2/3 license plates because nobody's going to want a broken license plate holder. So this point doesn't work, all right, in this real life setting. But that did give me an idea that maybe I should try the number 50. And if you plug 50 in for y, 50 times 6 is 300. So if y was 50 and x was 1, 4 times 1 is 4, 6 times 50 is 300. That adds up to 304. So that is a second solution that I could write. Okay, last problem. All right, so what you're going to do on this last problem is they're giving you a data table. You're going to plot that data table, and you're going to draw a line of fit. Okay, I already plotted the points here. Because the line is going uphill, it appears to be linear, and it appears to be a positive relationship, okay? Now, once you draw your line of fit, they're asking you to write an equation for that line. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick 2 points on your line of fit. The 2 points I picked also happen to be in my data. I'm going to find the slope, and then I'm going to use point slope because I cannot easily see what the y-intercept is. And I'm going to solve that equation for y, okay? So you can see my work here, and I got a final answer over here to the side of y equals 11.5x plus 191.5. Your answer may be different for that because you may have chosen different points based upon your line of fit.